What if I told you that in all the years you have breathed, walked, worked, loved, struggled, and dreamed, you have never truly been awake? The notion sounds absurd at first, almost insulting. How could you not be awake? You rise in the morning, your eyes open. You feel the weight of your body press into the mattress before you stand. You look at the sunlight spilling through the window, sip your coffee, and move through the motions of your day. Isn't this waking? Isn't this life? Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm of existence lies a question so profound it shatters the certainty of everything you think you know. If your life has been lived inside layers of assumption, habit, and unexamined patterns, have you ever actually seen reality as it is, or only the dreamlike projection of your own conditioned mind? The phrase, "you've never actually been awake a single day of your life," is not an accusation but an invitation. It is the slow peeling back of veils, the whisper that what you call consciousness may be nothing more than the faintest shadow of a deeper awareness still hidden from you. To live asleep is not simply to slumber in the night. It is to walk through daylight encased in fog, mistaking familiar shapes for clarity, never realizing how much more vivid and luminous reality could be if only you broke free of the trance. Humanity, in this sense, lives in a great sleepwalk, drifting through inherited beliefs, cultural scripts, and inner chatter that loops endlessly, like a record playing the same song until it becomes indistinguishable from silence. There is a strange paradox here. You believe yourself to be conscious because you are capable of thought, of memory, of decision. But true wakefulness is not defined by mere cognition. It is not the mind endlessly narrating your life, reacting to events, chasing after desires, and fleeing from fears. That mechanism is only a dream machine, a projection system. Wakefulness, in its truest form, is the sudden rupture of that dream. The pure awareness that exists before the narrative begins, the unfiltered seeing of what is, and most of us, despite our busyness, our striving, our technology, and even our spirituality, rarely if ever touch it. The image that comes to mind is that of a sleeper dreaming they are awake. In the dream, they perform tasks, speak with people, and navigate challenges. They may even dream of waking, opening their eyes to what feels like morning, only to realize later that they were still dreaming all along. This endless hall of mirrors is the condition of the unawakened life. Every thought you have ever taken is absolute truth. Every story you've rehearsed about who you are, every interpretation you've projected onto reality, they all form the architecture of a dream so convincing that you rarely pause to question whether the foundation is real. This is not meant to reduce life to emptiness or futility. Quite the opposite. To recognize that you may never have been awake is to glimpse, for the first time, the possibility that awakening is real. It is to admit that the colors you've seen are but faint pastels compared to the brilliance that waits when perception is freed. Imagine standing before a vast, cosmic sunrise while still wearing a blindfold. The warmth may touch your skin. You may sense brightness through the thin fabric. But until you remove the covering, the full glory remains concealed. Awakening is that unbinding. It is not about abandoning life, but finally inhabiting it. Throughout history, mystics, poets, and philosophers have tried to describe this awakening. They spoke of it as enlightenment, liberation, gnosis, or the lifting of Maya's veil. Yet each word fell short, because language itself belongs to the dream. How do you describe color to one who has only known shades of gray? How do you speak of silence to one who has never heard their mind grow still? And yet, the paradox continues. To awaken, one must first be shaken, cold, reminded that the familiar is not all there is. The phrase "you've never actually been awake a single day of your life" is such a reminder. It cracks the shell, planting a seed of doubt in the fertile soil of your certainty. To accept this possibility is to step into a strange and unsettling territory. It is to question whether your choices have been authentically yours or simply echoes of conditioning. It is to wonder if your anger, joy, love, and fear were spontaneous expressions of your true essence, or merely the reflexes of a dream character you've mistaken for yourself. It is to realize that what you call I may be more mysterious than the mind's ceaseless chatter would have you believe. And if that is so, then perhaps the life you have lived so far has been but the faint sketch of a masterpiece still waiting to be unveiled. This journey is not about dismissing the life you've lived as wasted. It is about recognizing that sleep, too, has a purpose. Just as the cocoon is necessary for the butterfly, The long dream of unawakened living may be the necessary gestation before the true birth of consciousness. The patterns, the illusions, the repetitions, all of them build the tension, the longing, the hunger that eventually leads one to ask, is this all there is, or is there something more? And so here we stand at the threshold, gazing into the mystery. The idea that you've never truly been awake carries both terror and liberation. Terror, because it unsettles everything you thought you knew. Liberation, because it opens the possibility that what you have taken is limits and nothing but dream walls waiting to dissolve. The invitation is not to despair but to wonder, to consider that perhaps real wakefulness is not something to be granted by another, nor something hidden in far-off temples or scriptures, but a dimension of awareness that is always being within you. Patiently waiting for recognition. To enter this inquiry is to embark on one of the greatest adventures available to a human being. It is not a journey to a distant land, but to the hidden depths of your own presence. It is not about accumulating more knowledge, but shedding the illusions that keep you dreaming. And it begins with the courage to ask, have I ever truly been awake, or have I mistaken the dream of life for life itself? To explore the claim you've never actually been awake, the single day of your life is to step into the very architecture of existence, peeling back the walls of familiarity until you see the beams and scaffolding that hold the dream together. It is not enough to take the statement as metaphor. To grasp it fully, one must examine the core patterns that perpetuate humanity's half-sleep and glimpse the subtle distinctions between living in illusion and awakening to reality. These themes are not foreign. They whisper in myths, philosophies, and spiritual traditions across the ages, but they are easy to overlook because they are woven seamlessly into the fabric of what we call ordinary life. At the heart of this condition lies the power of habit. Each morning, before the conscious mind even stirs, your body already remembers what to do. Your hand reaches for the same device. Your thoughts drift along the same grooves. Your emotions rise and fall according to the same patterns that yesterday etched into your nervous system. Habits are efficient. They allow survival. They maintain order. They keep the machinery of society moving. Yet they also lull you into a rhythm that masquerades as consciousness. You believe you are choosing, but in truth, much of what you call choice is repetition. The mind recycles itself, and the dream continues. Awakening, then, demands more than breaking a few bad habits. It requires the profound recognition that much of your life is a rehearsal of yesterday, not the freshness of today. Beyond habit lies the grander illusion of identity. You speak of yourself as though you were a stable, unchanging entity. I am this, I am not that, I have always been this way. Yet, upon closer examination, identity is a mask, a performance assembled from memories, roles, cultural conditioning, and unexamined beliefs. It is the story told about a character in a play, and like an actor who forgets they are on stage, you merge with the role so deeply that you mistake it for reality. The unawakened life is bound by this story, unable to see that the narrator within is not the one who sees, but the one who dreams. To awaken is to stand outside the story, to realize that you are not the mask you wear, nor the script you follow, but the awareness watching it unfold. Another theme is time. Perhaps the most subtle of illusions. To live asleep is to be imprisoned by past and future, believing that memory is a perfect record and that the future is a tangible destination awaiting your arrival. In truth, both are constructs, phantoms, stitched together by imagination. The past is nothing but a series of recollections, altered each time they are remembered, blurred by emotion and interpretation. The future is a projection, a dream of what might be. The present, the only reality, slips unnoticed through your fingers while you wander the corridors of time in your mind. Awakening is the radical discovery that the present is not just a fleeting moment, but the only dimension where life has ever lived. To realize this is to taste reality unfiltered, without the distortions of nostalgia or anticipation, interwoven with habit, identity, and time is the ceaseless chatter of thought. This inner dialogue becomes so constant, so unquestioned, that it feels indistinguishable from consciousness itself. Yet thought is not awareness. It is a tool, a commentary, a noise that overlays silence. To mistake thought for consciousness is like mistaking the ripples on the surface of the ocean for the ocean itself. The true depth, the vastness beneath, remains unseen. Most people live and die on the surface, tossed by waves of thinking without ever diving into the stillness that reveals what it means to be awake. Culture reinforces this dream. From the moment you were born, you are given names, languages, beliefs, and systems that define reality for you. You inherit lenses through which you view the world. And because everyone around you wears the same lenses, the illusion feels like truth. You are told what success looks like, what happiness requires, what to fear, what to pursue. Even rebellion often takes place within the same scripted boundaries, like a dreamer rebelling against dream characters without realizing they are still asleep. To awaken is to step outside of the collective hypnosis, to see not just your personal conditioning, but the dream of the entire civilization. And yet, there is another dimension running through all of this, like a quiet thread glimmering beneath the fabric. It is the dimension of awareness itself, the silent witness, the formless presence that observes thought, emotion, identity, and even culture. This awareness does not come and go. It is not bound by habit or time. It is the one constant in the flux of existence. Awakening is the recognition of this awareness, not as an abstract concept, but as the very essence of who you are. When you glimpse it, even for a moment, the dream begins to unravel. The habits may still play, the identity may still perform, thoughts may still rise, but you no longer mistake them for the whole of reality. The idea that you have never truly been awake a single day of your life is therefore not an insult, but a revelation. It points to the depth of what has been overlooked. It suggests that your struggles, your joys, your triumphs and failures all happened within a dreamscape, so convincing you called it reality. But if even one veil can be lifted, if even one illusion can be seen for what it is, then the possibility of awakening emerges. Like dawn breaking over a dark horizon, what makes this exploration both terrifying and exhilarating is that awakening cannot be borrowed. No one can hand it to you. It cannot be bought, inherited, or memorized. It must be directly encountered, tasted, lived, and it begins by recognizing the dream for what it is. To say you have never been awake is to admit the possibility that everything familiar could be turned inside out, revealing dimensions of perception you never imagined possible. The journey through these core themes, habit, identity, time, thought, and cultural hypnosis lays the foundation for understanding the dream. But to penetrate more deeply, one must turn to the language of symbols and stories. For sometimes what reason cannot grasp, imagination can illuminate. Allegory has the power to bypass the defenses of the rational mind and slip directly into the soul, planting seeds of awakening through imagery that lingers long after words are forgotten. If the first steps of this exploration unveil the scaffolding of the dream habits, identities, and illusions of time, then the deeper journey requires another language, one older than reason and more resonant than logic. It is the language of story, symbol, and myth. For sometimes the truth of wakefulness cannot be dissected under the cold light of analysis. It must be experienced in imagery that bypasses the intellect and touches the soul. To understand the idea that you've never actually been awake a single day of your life, it helps to descend into allegory, to wander through symbolic landscapes that mirror the hidden nature of our condition. Imagine, first, a great theater. The stage is vast, the sets elaborate, the actors fully immersed in their roles. Each person believes the play is life itself. They fight, fall in love, despair, rejoice, and chase ambitions with full sincerity, never suspecting that the script was written long before they were born. The audience seats are empty, yet above the stage burns a single light, silent and steady. To live asleep is to remain forever on the stage, mistaking the role for the self. To awaken is to suddenly turn your gaze away from the drama and notice the empty theater, the echo of your own footsteps, and the light that has been shining unnoticed all along. Or consider the allegory of the dreamer within a dream. A person lies asleep, dreaming they are awake, walking through familiar streets, speaking with friends, working and living. Then, within that dream, they fall asleep again, entering yet another dream nested inside the first. How many layers could there be? How many times could one awaken only to discover it was still a dream? This is the human condition. Each awakening is partial until one reaches the source, the awareness that contains all dreams. Until then, you may confuse stirring slightly in your sleep with true waking. Another symbol arises. From the image of a traveler wandering through a vast labyrinth. The walls are high, covered in moss, and every turn seems to lead deeper into confusion. The traveler spends years mapping the passages, finding familiar routes, even decorating their corner of the maze. They feel pride in their navigation skills, sorrow at dead ends, and satisfaction at small discoveries. But one day, they notice something strange. A faint breeze against their face, carrying the scent of the open sky. For the first time, they realize that the labyrinth is not the whole world, but a construction. And beyond the walls lies freedom. To live asleep is to wander endlessly in the labyrinth, mistaking its walls for reality. To awaken is to find the doorway out. Symbols are powerful because they do not merely describe, they echo within us. Take the ancient tale of Plato's cave, where prisoners mistake shadows for reality, never realizing the light of the sun exists outside their confinement. That story is not about some distant group of captives. It is about each of us, mistaking thoughts, identities, and perceptions for truth. The shadows are the dream, projected on the walls of our minds. And awakening is the act of stepping beyond the cave, even if the light blinds us at first. And yet, awakening is not only a grand, cosmic rupture. Sometimes it is whispered in the most ordinary symbols of daily life. The child who suddenly notices the way sunlight bends through a raindrop, realizing for a moment that beauty exists independent of thoughts, that is a glimpse of wakefulness. The elder who, after a lifetime of striving, looks at the night sky and feels for the first time the vastness of being. That, too, is awakening. These small symbolic ruptures hint at the greater truth, that wakefulness is not somewhere else but hidden in plain sight, veiled by the dream of constant distraction. Another story emerges in the image of a mirror. A person spends their whole life polishing the mirror, decorating the frame, adjusting the angle, and analyzing every smudge upon its surface. They believe the mirror is the treasure, forgetting that its true purpose is to reflect. At last, one day, they look beyond the glass and see not the mirror but themselves, luminous and whole. This, too, is the difference between living asleep and awakening, mistaking the tools of consciousness for consciousness itself, until the realization dawns that what you sought has always been staring back at you. There is also the timeless image of the sleeper in a crowded city. Around them, thousands rush about their business, shouting, trading, striving, laughing, and crying. Yet the sleeper lies undisturbed, eyes closed, dreaming of a life as vivid as the one unfolding outside. Everyone else is awake to the city, but what if they, too, are asleep in another sense? What if the true city lies beyond their perception, waiting only for the opening of deeper eyes? In this symbol, both the dreamer and the crowd are asleep, each convinced of their own wakefulness, each blind to the greater reality. What unites these narratives is the theme of mistaken reality, whether it is the theater mistaken for life, the labyrinth mistaken for the world, or the mirror mistaken for the treasure. The common thread is the same. The sleeper does not know they are asleep. The dream is so totalizing, so immersive, that the possibility of awakening does not even occur until something disrupts the pattern. And this is why the phrase, "You've never actually been awake a single day of your life," carries such weight. It is that disruption. It plants the thought that perhaps the world is not what it seems, and perhaps the self is not who you thought it was. Symbols, allegories, and myths serve another purpose too. They soften the shock. For to be told bluntly that your entire life has been lived in sleep can feel unbearable, even nihilistic. But to encounter it through story is to glimpse the truth with gentleness, to sense it in imagery that stirs curiosity rather than despair. The story of the labyrinth does not leave the traveler hopeless. It leaves them searching for the breeze that hints at freedom. The cave does not end with shadows, it ends with sunlight. The mirror does not remain an object, it becomes a gateway. In this way, symbolic narratives prepare the heart for awakening in a way analysis alone cannot. They reach into the hidden places, stirring longings you may not have known you carried, pointing toward the horizon of a life lived not in dream but in luminous presence. The allegories of dreams, labyrinths, and mirrors reveal the condition of sleep. But the question naturally arises, what does this mean for daily life? It is one thing to contemplate the profound idea that you may never have been awake, but it is quite another to integrate this insight into the texture of each morning, each interaction, each breath. If awakening is real, then it cannot remain confined to philosophical speculation. It must ripple into how you see yourself, how you treat others, and how you engage with the world. To understand you've never actually been awake a single day of your life is more than poetic metaphor. You must begin to live as though the possibility of waking is available in every moment. Integration begins with the recognition of presence. In the ordinary rush of life, presence is drowned by noise, the constant chatter of thought, the urgency of schedules, the seduction of screens. To live asleep is to mistake this noise for reality, never noticing the quiet awareness that underlies it all. Practical awakening, then, begins not with dramatic revelations, but with the simple act of pausing. To pause in the middle of your day, to feel your breath without trying to change it, to notice the weight of your body against the ground. These are not trivial gestures, they are cracks in the dream. Each pause is a reminder that beneath the swirling stories, there is a deeper, unchanging presence. Another practical dimension is how you relate to time. Most lives are lived in captivity to past and future. The mind replays old conversations, regrets, traumas, and triumphs, as though they were happening again. It projects fantasies and fears into the future, spinning scenarios that may never come to pass. The present becomes little more than a hallway through which you rush, on your way to someplace else. Yet awakening requires anchoring yourself in the now, not as an intellectual exercise but as lived reality. This does not mean abandoning memory or planning, but it does mean recognizing their nature as tools, not truths. When you sit with a taste of food, the sound of rain, or the laughter of a friend without drifting elsewhere, you touch the edge of waking. Relationships also transform under this lens. To live asleep is to see others not as they are but as projections of your own mind roles, expectations, and judgments woven into a dream. You may see a partner as a reflection of your needs, a colleague as an obstacle, a stranger as irrelevant. Yet in moments of wakefulness, the veil lifts, and another human being appears in their raw, unrepeatable reality. Practical awakening in relationships means learning to listen without the constant overlay of inner commentary, to see without immediately categorizing, to speak without rehearsed defenses. It is not abstract mysticism, but the radical act of encountering others as if for the first time, without the filter of yesterday's assumptions. There are also real-world implications in how you engage with work and creativity. The sleep state often manifests as mechanical repetition, going through tasks as though they were obligations disconnected from meaning. Even ambition, which seems to drive progress, can become part of the dream if it is fueled by the endless hunger of the false self, always chasing after recognition or security. To bring awakening into this domain is to rediscover the spark of presence in whatever you do. To let work become not just a means to an end, but an expression of awareness. A simple task, when done with full attention, reveals a dimension of depth that no amount of distraction can provide. Creativity flourishes here, for true originality arises not from recycled thought, but from the silence out of which thought emerges. On a broader scale, awakening also reshapes how you perceive society itself. To recognize that much of human life is lived in sleep is to question the systems and narratives that guide civilization. Advertising thrives on unawareness, persuading you to desire what you do not need. Politics often manipulates through fear and identity, keeping people divided within the dream of opposition. Even education, in many forms, conditions repetition rather than discovery. To awaken within society is not to withdraw in despair, but to see clearly where the illusions are, to participate with discernment rather than unconscious conformity. It is to recognize that while the collective dream has power, your individual awakening contributes to the possibility of collective transformation. And perhaps most importantly, awakening carries implications for how you view suffering. To live asleep is to be entangled in pain without ever questioning its source. You feel trapped by circumstances, haunted by losses, or anxious about the future, never realizing that much of your suffering arises not from reality itself, but from the stories spun around it. Awakening does not erase grief, loss, or challenge, but it reveals their nature as part of the dream. In that recognition, suffering loses some of its grip. You begin to see that even in the midst of pain, there is a spaciousness in awareness that remains untouched. This spaciousness is freedom, not freedom from life, but freedom within it. Practical awakening is not about rejecting the world, but inhabiting it differently. It does not require abandoning your responsibilities, fleeing to mountaintops, or retreating into isolation. It requires only the willingness to see clearly, moment by moment. that what you have taken as reality may be only the surface of a deeper truth. Each time you pause, each time you choose presence over distraction, each time you see another person without projection, you are not merely practicing mindfulness, you are tugging at the very threads of the dream. Slowly, the veil thins, and the possibility of true wakefulness approaches. To live as though you have never been awake is not to condemn yourself, but to accept the adventure of awakening as your birthright. And once you glimpse the real-world implications, presence in the everyday, authenticity in relationships, freedom in creativity, discernment in society, and spaciousness in suffering, you begin to see that awakening is not an abstract ideal, but a lived revolution. It is the transformation of the ordinary into the extraordinary, the recognition that life, when truly seen, is luminous beyond measure. From the very beginning, we have wandered together through the strange and unsettling suggestion that you have never truly been awake. We began by peering into the fog of daily life, where habit and conditioning masquerade as consciousness. We examined the themes that formed the dream identity, time, thought, and culture, and saw how they construct a convincing stage upon which you live. Unaware that you are still asleep, we entered into the realm of symbols and stories, where allegories of caves, labyrinths, and mirrors whispered the same truth in the language of myth. And finally, we traced the way this awareness might ripple into ordinary life, transforming presence, relationships, work, society, and even suffering. Now, at the end of this journey, one question remains. If you have never truly been awake a single day of your life, what will you do with the possibility of waking now? Awakening is not a final destination, nor is it a static state of perfection. It is a continual turning, a willingness to lift the veil again and again, to refuse to be lulled back into the comfort of unconscious repetition. Life will always offer the temptation to return to sleep, for the dream has its seductions, the familiar rhythm of habit, the safety of identity, the illusion of certainty. Yet somewhere within you burns the quiet knowing that there is more, that beyond the veil lies a depth of reality too luminous to ignore. This knowing is the beginning of transformation. The call to awaken is not dramatic in its outer form, though it may feel seismic within. It does not demand that you leave behind the world, but that you inhabit it with new eyes. To be awake is to wash dishes and feel the warmth of water as though it were the first time. It is to speak to another human being without armor, encountering them not as an object in your dream but as a luminous presence in their own right. It is to walk beneath the sky and realize that you are not separate from its vastness, but an expression of the same mystery. In this way, awakening is not escape, it is arrival. Transformation begins the moment you stop insisting that you already see clearly. To admit that you have lived asleep is not humiliation, is liberation. For in that admission lies the possibility of fresh sight. Imagine how differently you would move through life if each moment carried the weight of being the first. Imagine how your relationships would deepen if you encountered others without projecting your stories onto them. Imagine how your creativity would flourish if it sprang not from repetition but from the stillness beneath thought. Imagine the freedom of no longer being shackled by the past or terrified of the future, of living instead in the unbroken stream of presence. This is not fantasy. It is the invitation hidden in the phrase you've never actually been awake a single day of your life. The world does not need more sleepers decorating their corners of the labyrinth. It needs awake beings who can see the maze for what it is and point toward the open sky. It needs people who can live with clarity in a time of confusion, with compassion in a time of division, with presence in a time of distraction. Your awakening is not only for yourself, it is for the fabric of the world. When even one person begins to live as though truly awake, it ripples outward, silently shifting the collective dream. The transformational call, then, is simple but radical. Awaken now. Not tomorrow, not when life is more convenient, not when the world slows down, but here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this gaze. For wakefulness is not hidden in some distant mountaintop or secret teaching. It is the awareness reading these words, the presence listening behind thought, the silent witness that has been here all along. You do not need to become something else to awaken. You need only to recognize what has never left you. And so, the journey ends where it began, with the possibility that your entire life has been lived in a dream, and the invitation to awaken from it. Whether you take that invitation is not a matter of dramatic gestures or cosmic visions, but of simple, unbroken attention to this very moment. If you can see clearly now, if you can rest even briefly in the awareness that is beyond thought, then you have already begun. Awakening is not a promise of comfort but of truth. It is not the guarantee of happiness but the opening of perception to reality as it is. And in that reality lies a freedom deeper than happiness, a joy that does not depend on circumstance, a clarity that cannot be shaken by the turbulence of the world. This is the gift waiting for those who dare to question whether they have ever truly been awake. You have walked through the introduction, the themes, the symbols, the integration, and now the call. The circle is complete, yet the journey is only beginning. The rest cannot be written, it can only be lived. For now, the only question left is the one only you can answer. Will you continue to dream, or will you awaken?